is the case of the murder of 19-year-old Jessie Blodgett in Wisconsin. So let's go ahead and get into the background of the case. Jessie was born on March 22nd, 1994 in Georgia, but she grew up in Hartford, Wisconsin. She had two loving parents, and she was an only child. She was a very, very talented and brilliant girl. She had amazing grades in her classes, and she was a wonderful musician and actress. She played the piano and the violin. She wrote music, she sang, and she acted in the school plays. She was also very involved in animal rights, and she was involved in projects dealing with the prevention of violence towards women. Jessie hoped to become a school choir director, either high school or university. She even started her own tutoring service where she tutored younger children in the piano, and she had gotten herself quite a business going with 26 clients in a short period of time. I mean, that's amazing. Now, when Jessie was in 9th grade, she started dating this boy named Dan Bartelt. He was also very, very smart and very musically talented, and was also an actor, so very similar to her. He was the first violin, and she was the second violin in the orchestra. So they started dating. They dated about 3 months, and they broke up. He actually was the one who initiated the breakup. And it was not a big deal. They continued on as friends. Now, Jessie wrote a lot of very, very beautiful music, and you can even watch some of her work on YouTube, and I highly recommend that you do go check it out, because she is a beautiful piano player and singer. Now, when she graduated from high school, she got a scholarship. It was a music scholarship to the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. And her old boyfriend, he went to the University of Wisconsin also, but a different campus. the show finished, its last performance, there was a cast party. And she went to it. Big pool party at somebody's house. And she stayed there, pretty late. She came home. She saw her mother. And she told her that while she was at the party, there was this older man, like in his mid to late 40s, who was hitting on her and even pulled her onto his lap. And she wanted nothing to do with him. So, they spoke for a few minutes, and then, it was late. They went to bed. The next morning, the mother got up. It was like around 8. She brought some clean laundry into Jessie's room. Jessie was asleep. She left for work. She came home around noon for lunch. And it seemed like Jessie was still asleep. And Jessie had a music student coming for a lesson. So she went to wake her up. And she went into Jessie's room and tried to wake her, and then realized that not only was she blue, but she was cold and not responding. In a panic, she called 911 and told them. And they asked her if she could do CPR. And she was saying, but she's cold. Now the mother was crying, and you can really empathize. When you hear her crying, it's so real. It is so real. And she turns her daughter over, and she tells the woman on the phone that she sees strangulation marks on Jessie's neck. So, the ambulance comes, and of course, it's too late. It seemed as if Jessie had been murdered. She had been then placed back in a sort of a staged position with her covers on, She was wet. It seemed that she had been washed. And she had, ligature marks on her neck and wrists and ankles. She had obviously been tied up. And they found a roll of duct tape under the bed that was carelessly left behind. The person had taken care to wash off evidence, but accidentally left the tape. Now, there was no forced entry because this family didn't lock their doors in general. In some places people don't lock their doors, I guess, yeah. Because they live in safe, quiet neighborhoods. So, the first place the police checked, of course, was the older man at the party. And it did seem like a good lead because the next day he didn't show up to work. But they tracked him down. And it wasn't him. He had an alibi. He was cleared. Meanwhile, on a completely separate note, 3 days before Like, she just felt like, oh, he just was a friendly guy, she said. And he just was, close behind her, and no big deal. But then when she took a second look back, she realized he had a knife. Now, I know everyone's going to want to know what happened with the dog. I didn't hear anything about the dog. Like, I don't think the dog didn't get hurt, but I don't know if the dog got involved. Maybe the dog was already in the car. I didn't hear anything about the dog. But anyway, so right away he pushed her down onto the ground. They start wrestling. She manages to grab the knife blade first in her hand, and she gets it away from him. Mind you, she cut up her hand in a big way. Now she has the knife, and he said to her, quote, "Can I just go?" end quote. Like, can you imagine? So anyway, he just took off. And luckily, she saw what car he had. It was a blue Dodge Caravan. She saw what he looked like: completely blonde hair, about 6'2", 210 pounds, around 18 to 20 years old. Fair skin, like she had the whole thing. She drove herself to the hospital. She needed stitches, obviously, and she told the police everything she knew. And, they put out a sketch, which got them nothing. But they put out information on the car, and one of the other deputies in the department said he knew the car. He said he had seen the same car at the same park a few months before and had ran the plates at that time. I don't know why. Maybe there was something else going on at that park at that time, so he took the information down, like he hadn't actually used that information for anything. But so they found the owners. It was a couple, like in their 40s. They spoke to the couple, and they said that their son drives the car. Their son, whose name was Dan Bartelt. Remember him? Jessie's friend, the musician, the first chair violin, the boy who dropped out of college. So they called him on his cell, and it just so happens he was at Jessie's funeral. He was in her house, and everybody was talking about their memories. They were going around and they were sharing, and they were crying, and they were hugging each other. So he got a call from the police. They asked him to come down. He said he would. That's it, he didn't ask them why. And when he told everyone at the funeral he had to go because the police called, Jessie's parents said, "Don't worry, they're gonna speak to everyone." So he headed over there, and they told him why he was there. He didn't fess up to anything. They asked him where he had come from. He said he was at Jessie Blodgett's funeral. The girl who was murdered a couple towns from here. Interesting. Now this is a different police station. tells them, okay, I did it, the attack, but I just wanted to scare someone, that's all. That was my whole plan. I just wanted to scare someone. Interesting. So they said, why? And he said, because ever since he came home from college, he's been scared of life. And he wanted someone else to feel it too. Well, that doesn't sound very nice either, but that's what he was going with. Okay. So off he went to jail for that, okay? Meanwhile, so they take their information to the other, police district to tell them, this guy seems like he might be the guy who murdered Jessie. So they look into it, and they have their turn interviewing him. He tells them he did not do it. He said that he was not at her house that day. He was actually at the park, a different park, another park. That he was sitting at the park. He was writing at the park. What were you writing about? I was writing. No, wait till you hear this. A story about a girl named Jessica who gets murdered. That's like just insane. Okay. So they go down to that park, and luckily the trash had not been taken away. They find, first of all, they do see him in the CCTV footage of that park, coming out of the bathroom. And in the garbage they find a cereal box that has in it all the things. It has a rope that matches the rope marks on Jessie. It has a ball gag. There are alcohol wipes, and there are ligatures. Now they find in Jesse's home, in his garage, the same type of rope. They go up to his room, they check his computer, and they find very, very dark and violent porn on there that he had been watching, some of which seemed to match exactly what he had done, or what had been done to Jessie. So that shows you kind of what he's been doing with his time. They also found some Wikipedia searches of serial killers and spree killings. I'm not sure how useful that is these days. We're all looking up that stuff, but they did find that. Now they also found that his DNA was a match to the DNA found this guy was very spiritual, had a lot of faith, and yes, he told Dan that he forgives him. And he explained that, this helped him have some peace. And after it was all done, he wanted her death to mean something to someone, so he started a foundation called Love is Greater Than Hate Project. And the goal here was to go around the country and give talks to schools, colleges, prisons, churches, community groups, and tell them his story, tell them the story of what happened to Jessie, and just try to end violence against women and girls. And they have a very nice website if you'd like to check that out as well. Seems like they've been doing some good work. So that is the case. What do you think? Well, I will tell you some of my thoughts. Of course, my heart goes out to the parents. Not only did they lose their beautiful, brilliant, loving, wonderful 19-year-old daughter, but she was their only child. It is so unthinkable. Why do I think he did it? I mean, I'd have to say he obviously had more than just depression. He had no empathy, clearly. He was a sociopath, clearly. He attacked the first woman. I guess he was going to originally do whatever it is he wanted to do to her, perhaps, but it failed. So he moved on to Jessie. And he did it in a more, predictable environment in her home that he knew he could get into while she was asleep. So, and he was living out what he had watched in these movies or these videos. He wanted to satisfy his urge to kill, and it is thought that he would probably have gone on to do it over and over if he hadn't been caught. And how he could just sit there and tell her parents that, he's sorry this happened to them. Like, that is just unbelievable. I mean, I know a lot of people who are guilty say they didn't do it, but then they don't usually go ahead and talk to the, victim's family like that, and look them right in the face like that. Like, come on, everyone knows you did it. It's just beyond belief. Just like, what is wrong with some people? Why do you take the life of an innocent 19-year-old girl who has so much to live for? Like, seriously. I just never get it. But I believe he is where he's supposed to be right now, in prison for the rest of his life. And by the way, everyone in town was shocked that he could do such a thing. Like, they all said he seemed very normal. Even, like I had mentioned, like Jessie's parents never suspected him for a second. So anyway,